They were called the Sanbobs. They were one of 3 rock and roll bands in our school, although I use the term band loosely to cover a multitude of whims. They were headed by a guy named Chip Sanford. He worked with a fellow named Bob Wigglesworth, thus the Sanbobs. Now, Chip did not like me, which caused Bob to follow suit in loyalty. I think the reason Chip didn't like me very well was that he was chubby, wore glasses, and people were constantly saying that we could be brothers, which is a certain way to make sure that people won't have an affinity for each other. I think another reason was that Chip played piano and so did I. I used my gifts in the gospel field, while he was drawn to the Trogs, the Beatles, and the Kinks. The Sanbobs had 4 members, as I already told you, Chip on piano, Bob Wigglesworth on guitar, knowing an amazing 5 chords, Mark Jackson on drums, who was highly recommended for his loud playing, and Larry Mankins on bass, even though he couldn't afford an electric one, so instead thumped on a stand-up, which left him appearing to be very vigorous but unheard. The biggest happening in the spring of 1967 in our school was that Chip got a new electric organ. It was so cool! So it was decided that the Sanbobs would be scheduled to play for the spring dance, and the diligent members of the quartet went out and learned 6 songs. The only problem was that one of the songs they selected was Louie, Louie, which had already been banned by the state of Indiana for having obscene lyrics. Now, we lived in Ohio, but certainly did not want to seem immoral by advocating such a loose tune. When word got out to the principal's office that the Sanbobs were planning to play the piece, a meeting was held and it was forbidden. The FBI had investigated the lyrics and had come to the conclusion that they were basically unintelligible. The Kingsmen made sure of that. But just to play it safe, the song was still considered to be nefarious. On the night of the dance, after they had played each of their 5 songs 3 times over, the Sanbobs decided to rebel against authority and began to play Louie, Louie. The girls screamed in delight, and the young men clapped their hands, peering at each other lasciviously. It took a few minutes for the adults to figure out what was going on, but when they did, they proceeded to the stage to stop the performance. To my surprise, about 25 of the kids rushed the platform, locked their arms, and forbade the teachers from getting near the band as they continued to croon the bewildering poetry. I was one of the participants who scattered to a corner of the gym in horror like a mouse being chased by the handmaiden's broom. When the teachers were unable to get through the Red Rover lineup, they decided to kill the electricity, which left the gymnasium encompassed in darkness. At first there were some oohs and ahs and screams, which gradually became whispers and culminated in silence. The teachers, not so sure what was going on in the dark, restored the juice and discovered that the students were making out with each other. So it became a choice. Which vice did you want to promote? Louie Louie with its garbled goodies, or a makeout session in the high school gym? So the Sanbobs were allowed to finish their song, but an early termination of the dance was proclaimed. Of course, as the years have gone by, it is obvious that nobody was really defiled by a single rock and roll song. It was prejudice, fear, apprehension, and narrow-mindedness which did that to us.